righty, I am going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to business planning week 2. We're back for our 2025 business plan. Last session, it wasn't last week, it was 2 weeks ago. We talked about what the 12-week year business plan is, what the 3 principles are, and the 5 disciplines. In case you missed that, number 1, it is recorded. Number 2, we're going to recover those again this week. And then what we did last week was we took a deep dive into uncovering your values and developing your vision, both for the long term, right? Like 15, 20 years out, and then your 3-year vision. So hopefully everyone has spent some time watching that video. If not, hit stop now, go back, watch that video before you proceed forward on this one. Spend some time working on your values and your vision, because I cannot express enough how important it is that you know what your values are and you know what your vision is, so that you can make it part of your business plan. So remember, your values are going to be your deepest level of programming. They're going to determine your satisfaction with how you spend your time, right? Everyone wants to be happy at work and doing something that brings them fulfillment. Your values are what is going to help you direct your business to make sure that that is happening for you. And then your vision is going to be what gets you out of bed every morning and keeps you motivated to keep going. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to develop your 12-week goals and how to identify those weekly tactics. So remember, okay, key point here, you're going to hear me mention this a couple different times today. We're working off a 12-week year. What that means is that each week is equal to a month and each day is equal to a week.
Affiliate sent it over.
It's going to be super important that you're purposeful in every goal that you develop and every tactic that you develop. Okay, so let's get started. So again, I mentioned we're going to do a quick recap. The 12-week year, right? We're going to stop thinking about our goals in yearly goals. We're going to start thinking of our year as being only 12 weeks. So when we take each year, again, we make it 12 weeks, then that week becomes a month and each day becomes a week. So it becomes way more imperative that we stay on track and that we get things done. When we look at our year as 12 months, right? We always think that there's more time. So you tend to not be as deliberate in those actions. And this leads to kind of panic at the end of the year. But when we think about it as those 12 weeks, it has been proven to drive execution, which also drives results. Okay, so remember, this isn't going to be an annual goal broken down into quarters. Okay, we're going to put more thought process into it than that. It's just going to look at where we need to be in the next 12 weeks. Okay, so it's not going to be like, well, this year I'm hoping to make $120,000. So let's see, 12 weeks, that's roughly 3 months. So I need to make $30,000. No, we're going to break it down a little bit differently, because there might be some 12-week periods where it might be, oh, well, this 12-week period, I'm going to make 60 grand, and last 12 weeks, I only made 20, right? So we're not going to necessarily just take a year-long goal and break it into quarters and call it a day, okay? The 3 principles that we're going to operate by or be guided by is number 1, accountability or ownership, right? That's a willingness to own your actions and the results regardless of your circumstances. So accountability equals actions. We're going to dive more into this accountability and ownership next week. Commitment, you're going to make a contract with yourself, right? The commitment is a promise. Accountability, projected in the future, or ownership of your future results. That's going to result in integrity, self-esteem, and success. Okay, so accountability is actions, and your commitment is a promise of accountability projected into the future. And then we also have the 3rd principle, which is that principle of greatness in the moment. It's the understanding that you become great the instant you choose to do the things that are going to bring you results, and those results are just the confirmation of greatness. Okay, greatness is the discipline. So if we put together our 12-week year goals and weekly tactics and we're executing those, we're great because we're executing those. The results are what's going to come from that, and that's what's going to cause us to, after 12 weeks, either have to tweak or adjust those actions. Okay, along with those 3 principles, we have, you're going to be driven by the 5 disciplines. The first one is vision. That's the fuel to keep going, right? Your vision is what's going to drive your execution. It's going to drive you to push on when you don't feel like it. That's what we covered last week. Okay, planning is our second discipline. We're going to go into it with a less is more mentality. The more focused you are with your plan, the greater your chances are of success. So that's what we're covering this week. The next one is process control, or what drives success in your tactics, the tools and events that align your daily action with goals. That process control is going to ensure that you execute your tactics effectively. We're going to talk about process control next week. The fourth discipline is scorekeeping, or to not be afraid, right, of measuring our success, right? It's our anchor to reality. Keeping score provides us with the feedback that we need in order to stay on track. So we'll talk about scorekeeping. I think we talk about scorekeeping maybe next week. And then the fifth principle is being intentional with your time so that you are in control of your results. Okay. And when I talk about being intentional with your time and being in control of your results, I'm not talking about working 80 hours a week. Nobody wants to do that. Okay. Any questions before we dive into our 12-week goals? And if you have questions, you're welcome to unmute yourself. Welcome, Dominic. You're welcome to throw them in the chat box. Whatever works. All right. Jumping into this week's content, which is our 12-week goals. Okay. So remember, we're thinking of the year as 12 weeks. So each week is a month. Each day is a week. I know I've repeated that like 3 times already today. It's probably going to happen more. But what that means is that we need to focus our efforts for the next 12 weeks on the top 2 to 3 goals that are going to help us to move forward. And they should be in alignment with our vision. So I'll give you some examples as we move through this process. Our 2 to 3 top goals that we're going to address over the next 12 weeks should be the items that we want to improve on right away. Okay. The goal should be the outcome that we want. So when we think of goals, that's what we're thinking of. At the end of 12 weeks, what is the outcome that we want? And it's also important to remember that we can't necessarily control the outcomes, okay? But we can control the actions. We're going to drive more results from those actions, and we're going to dive into that here in a little bit when we talk about our weekly tactics. So, but for right now, we're going to dive into our goals. Okay. For goals to be effective, they should be specific and measurable, right? We always talk about like SMART goals, specific and measurable. You want to be able to quantify and qualify what success looks like. The more specific, the better. Okay, so we want to be able to, at the end of 12 weeks, going into this next 12-week period, we want to be able to say, that's our goal. And it's very clear to know whether I reach that goal or whether I miss the mark. Okay, because it's going to be quantifiable and we're going to qualify what success looks like. Okay, again, I'm going to give you guys some examples. In addition, we want each goal to be a positive. Okay, so if your initial goal, let's say that our goal is real estate related and we want our fallout rate or our cancellations once we get somebody in contract, or even like we want people to show up to their appointment or whatever it is, we want that fallout rate, or those people that don't show up or those people that cancel, to be less than 5%. Okay, that's really truly the negative side of things. So instead what we want is the closing ratio. So instead we would say, hey, we want to close 95% of transactions under contract, to see how like less than 5% fallout rate turns into a closed rate of 95%. So we want to focus on the positive side of those goals instead of the negative. You want to make sure that your goal is going to be realistic and that it's also going to be a challenge or that's going to push you. So if you're currently closing like 2 transactions per month, having a 12-week goal of closing 6 transactions isn't really truly a stretch. Okay, but on the flip side of that, if we said, oh, we're going to close 18 transactions, that also may not be realistic, as it would be tripling your business, right? So something closer to like 8 to 12 transactions would cause you to be pushed. It would cause you to be challenged. It would be a stretch, but it wouldn't be impossible. Does that make sense to everyone? So when we put that goal together, we don't want it to be like, oh, that's a no duh. I can totally do that. But we also don't want it to be so far out there that we always feel like we're behind. Okay. The third thing that we want to do with our goals is that we're going to take ownership of the goals. So if you aren't willing to do what it's going to take to get you there, then don't put it down as a goal in the first place. We're not going to set ourselves up for failure. Okay. And finally, your goal should be time bound. You should have a goal date at which you determine if you have won or lost. For the most part, when we talk about our 12-week goals, that drop dead date is going to be the date at the end of this 12-week period. Any question as to how we're going to set up our goals? Okay, so let's dive into an example. So I'm going to use mine from last week. Remember, I sat down and went over kind of what my values look like and what my vision for 15 to 20 years look like, what my 3-year vision look like. So your goals should be totally tied into your vision. So first, I'm going to revisit my vision from last week. So my 3-year vision that I crafted last week was to be established as a real estate coach, leading new agents to success during their first 90 days in the business and helping established agents grow both personally and professionally to have the life and business that they envisioned. I will have at least 10 weekly coaching clients and create and be running at least 3 coaching modules with at least 100 agents participating. Also, to be a certified Carforms trainer, working no more than 3 days per week and only 48 weeks per year. See, my vision's very specific. At the end of 3 years, it's very quantifiable whether I've reached that or not. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down. Okay, well, in order to reach that in 3 years, what do I need to do in the next 12 weeks? Okay, so here's my top 2 to 3 goals that are going to help move me forward towards that vision, right? The top 2 to 3 things that are going to be my priority or need improving first to help me get the outcome I want over the next 12 weeks. So here's what I came up with. Those items might be number 1, complete a 14-week new agent module program and have a minimum of 10 agents testing the modules. Okay. It's a stretch. There's a lot that's going to go into that. It's quantifiable, qualifiable, right? I know what success looks like at the end of 12 weeks. It's going to be done, and it's going to have a minimum of 10 agents participate in testing those modules. The second goal that I came up with might be to get certified as a Carforms trainer. Okay, and the final goal is to secure 3 weekly coaching clients, right? So all of the goals, again, should be specific and measurable. For all 3 items, I know exactly what done looks like. Okay, I know whether I've won or lost at the end of 12 weeks. The first one is done when the 14-week new agent modules are complete and I have at least 10 agents testing them and providing feedback. The second is done when I'm a certified Carforms trainer. And the third is completed when I have 3 weekly coaching clients. Super simple and easy. It's measurable. All 3 items are positive. And I would say all 3 are realistic, but also a stretch at the same time. Remember, we don't want them to be too easy. And yet I also don't want them to be impossible. So if I was like, oh man, if I took 100, like my goal at the end of 3 years is 100 in 3 modules. So if like this time I was like, I want to get all 3 modules done, then that's probably not going to happen in the next 12 weeks, right? That would probably be virtually impossible. So that's like overtime. Okay. For the ownership, right, I have to be willing to be committed to doing what needs to be done to achieve the goals. So I'm committing to do what it takes. I want to tell you that in all honesty, number 2, the get certified as a Carforms trainer is a really hard one for me because I don't like sitting in a classroom setting going through those types of trainings, but I'm going to commit to doing it. And they're all time bound. They are to be completed by January 12th, 2025, that's 12 weeks from October 21st. My goal is to start implementing this plan October 21st, and it's going to run 12 weeks, which is January 12th. Okay. Some other examples, maybe your 3-year vision was something like to be debt free or to have $50,000 in the bank, or maybe it was to have a net worth of $1 million, or maybe even to own like 3 investment properties, right? We're going to derive those goals based on that vision. So let's say that 3-year vision included being debt free in 3 years. One of your goals for the next 12 weeks might be to live off a budget. Right? Super simple. Just like, hey, We're not even talking about paying off debt if that's our goal in 3 years. We just need to start working on like living off a budget, right? Or another goal might be to be current on all debts. Maybe we're not worried about paying them off. We just want to make sure all of our payments are current, right? We don't have to worry about what the end goal looks like. We just have to take steps that are going to move us in that direction. Okay, we need to establish some healthy habits. Also notice how we wanted to keep it positive. So instead of not saying, instead of saying, I don't want to be past due on any debts, I would say I want to be current on all debts. See the negative versus the positive there. So we always want to make sure that we stay on the positive side. Okay, so that makes sense to everybody on how to set goals. Perfect. Thank you for a thumbs up, Dominic. I appreciate it. And again, even if it's like real estate related, it's not necessarily like our goal for the next 12 weeks may not even be real estate related. Remember, real estate might be the vehicle that gets us the life that we want in 3 years or 10 years or 20 years down the road. But our goals don't necessarily have to revolve around real estate. The action steps or our weekly tactics might result back to real estate related actions. Okay. So the next thing, once we set those goals, remember next 12 weeks in each area, we're just looking for the top 2 to 3 goals that are going to move us forward. For the most part, you're probably going to have 2 to 3 like business related goals. Okay. And 2 to 3 personal goals, which might be related to like health, weight loss, relationships, finances. So if we think of all the areas, those 7 areas that we talked about, I think there were 7 with regards to our values, our goals might relate to those topics as well. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. Oftentimes you'll have kind of 2 sets of goals running, personal and professional. All right. Once we have our goals written down, we've confirmed that they meet the criteria for effective goals. The next step is that we are going to identify weekly tactics. Okay. Our weekly tactics are going to be the action steps that need to be completed in order to achieve the goal. Okay, so one way that we recommend doing this and that is highly effective is creating a brain map. And if you're like, Amy, what in the world is a brain map? Okay, so remember like in elementary school or maybe even junior high when they'd be like, we're going to write an essay, and they had you like draw little bubbles over, here's the main topics and here's some things that we can talk about. Basically the same idea. I know you never thought you would see that again, but we are going to do a brain map. You're going to write down the goal in the middle, and then you're going to begin making bubbles around it with all the things needed to achieve that goal. Okay, anything that we can think of. By doing it this way, instead of writing a list, right? A lot of people are like, oh, I've got to write a list. But when we write a list, it tends to take us to a linear way of thinking versus doing like a brain map actually makes it more of a creative mode and helps us to think more outside the box. So that's why we like doing the brain map versus linear. We don't have to worry about at this step making them full action items. We just want to kind of get ideas down on paper. Okay. When you are working on this, you may get to a point you make 5 or 6 bubbles and then you kind of get stuck thinking that you might be done. Give it a moment or 2, or even kind of ponder on it overnight, come back to it the next day, because often your most creative and powerful ideas are going to come to you after you get stuck. Okay. Also, what's also going to happen here is that you're probably going to have ideas and sub-ideas, right? So for instance, if my goal was to lose 10 pounds, one of my ideas in order to lose weight might be exercise, right? And then coming off exercise, I might determine that I need to schedule time or buy exercise equipment, or maybe even find an exercise buddy. Okay, so we might have ideas and sub-ideas, and I'll show you an example of this here in just a moment as well. Once you've brain mapped all of those ideas, everything that you can think of, you've given yourself time to just stop and think about it. Again, maybe even overnight, allow yourself to process it, come back to it the next day. Then what we're going to do is we're going to identify the most crucial ones, or the ones that are going to be the most impactful. Okay, those tactics are going to be the ones that have the biggest impact on helping us hit our goal. And those are going to become our weekly tactics or our weekly actions. Okay, so here's what that looks like. in an example. Okay, so remember, I'm going to take and look at the first goal that we had to identify what those tactics might look like. So that first goal that I came up with was complete a 14-week new agent module program and have a minimum of 10 agents testing the modules and providing feedback. Okay, so remember, it's specific, measurable, positive, realistic stretch, and it's time bound. My brain dump may look like this. Okay, the tactics may be get participants, which right, so over here, let's see if I find it. Get participants is right here. And then notice off of participants, I have that I want to connect with at least 5 agents that want to participate and grow their business. Those are kind of established agents, as well as I want to connect, which I think is spelt wrong, with new agents regarding participation. Okay, so get participants. Where are those participants going to come from? So there we go. I've got those ideas in place. I also thought that I probably need to record videos, right? Which led me to the idea that I probably need to edit the videos and create video thumbnails. Okay. In addition, some of the other things that I came up with are I actually need to publish the modules so they're visible. I need to determine where I'm going to put these modules, what the hosting site is. I need to drop a outline for what the lessons are going to be each week. Once I do that, I need to create descriptions and instructions. And then I probably need to use AI to clean up those descriptions and instructions to make them more professional or palatable. I probably need to create a check-in system to follow up to get that feedback, and maybe even create a feedback form, right? So I've got lots of different tactics there that I could utilize in order to reach my goal of creating that and having my first few people in there. Okay, let's see. Notice that it doesn't have to be like in order, doesn't have to be like first to last or most important or what I should do first, right? We're just coming up with ideas and getting them out there so that our thoughts are on paper. Again, here I'm not worried so much about complete sentences or even complete thoughts. I'm just getting the ideas out of my brain onto a piece of paper so that I can brainstorm what needs to happen over the next 12 weeks. Okay, any questions so far? All right. Once we have those brain dump done, then what we need to do is we need to identify our key activities so that we create those weekly tactics, right? So these are going to be the things that drive my goal to completion. Where do I need to put my focus? So this is kind of where we weed out some of those less important thoughts, right? This is where we come up with that less is more mentality. So some of my key items would be to record the videos. I need to determine the hosting site. I need to outline the lessons and create those descriptions and or instructions. And I need to connect with agents to participate, both new and experienced agents. Okay. Now, some of the other items are also important. They're just not as important to be done by me. So like I have an assistant that I have, and that assistant can create thumbnails and edit the videos. I don't have to do that. If I can get the videos recorded, she can do the rest. And she can go in there and publish the modules. So all those things I don't have to do. Those aren't my plate to take care of. So I'm just, what do I need to do over the next 12 weeks in order to drive this to completion? The other thing I thought is, well, with feedback, although I want the participants participating, and ultimately I want feedback coming in order to achieve the goal of have people participating and having the modules published, that's kind of not as important. It's kind of a lesser important item that I can probably take care of in the next 12 weeks. We'll talk about feedback and tweaking the modules to make them even better. But right now it's just about getting it out there and getting people participating. Okay, do you see how we kind of narrowed down some of those more important items so that we have those key activities to create those weekly tactics? Yes? Okay. So once we identify those key activities that need to be completed in order to achieve the goal by the end of the 12-week year, we need to write them down, and we have tactic rules. Just like we had rules for the goals, we have rules for the tactics. The first rule is every activity should support our 12-week goal. Okay. They should all be written starting with an action verb and be written as a complete sentence. And then each item should be able to be completed as written without a lot of pre-work. Okay, so if one of our items here was, let's say that we wanted to have 7 closed transactions by the end of 12 weeks. And one of those weekly tactics that we determined, or those key areas, was to get everybody on a drip campaign. And then the problem is that we haven't actually created any drip campaigns yet. So I have my weekly tactic, put everybody on a drip campaign, but it can't actually be completed as done because I've got pre-work that needs to be completed in order to achieve getting them on that drip campaign. So then we need to back the trolley horse up and go back to the weekly tactic should be probably creating the drip campaigns, not necessarily getting everybody on one. Okay. You want to specify the frequency and the due dates. Okay, how often are we doing it? Because there's some things that may be done daily, others may be done weekly, and yet others may just be a one-time task, right? If part of my deal to close 7 transactions is to host open houses, then one of my weekly tactics might be to host open house weekly. Okay. Or it might be to make phone calls where I'm calling or talking with people from my database on a daily basis. That makes sense to everybody? Okay. So we just want to make sure. So again, we want to make sure that they all support our weekly goals, our 12-week goal. We want to make sure they start with an action verb, that they're written as a complete sentence. They can be executed as written. And we want to make sure we specify the frequency and the due date. All right. So the last step then in my weekly tactics is to clarify those items following the rules. So remember, again, they should support the goal, start with the action verb, be written as a complete sentence, able to be executed as written, and specify the frequency or due date. So that's going to translate into the following. I'm going to identify and finalize the hosting site that will house the modules. That needs to be completed by the 25th of October. I'm going to outline lessons for each of the 14 weeks, and that needs to be completed by November 1st. I'm going to create a list of the videos that need to be recorded, and that needs to be completed by the 6th of November. I'm going to put together a schedule for recording videos. That's going to be due by the 8th of November. And then I'm going to record videos based on the schedule weekly to complete all videos by 12/21. Okay, so I want them all recorded, but I'm going to put this on a weekly.
Where are you going, honey?
What?
Where are you going?
Library?
Let me see if I can mute Kimberly. Hold on just a second. There we go. All right. I need to write descriptions for all the lessons, which means I'm going to complete 2 weeks worth of descriptions per week, starting on 11/4 or November 4th and finishing by the 21st of December. Okay, so it says the frequency, it says what's going to happen. I'm going to reach out to all agents that have been licensed less than 1 year and have completed less than 4 transactions to invite them to participate by the 31st of December. I'm going to connect with all agents that have been licensed more than a year and have completed less than 6 transactions in 2024 and invite them to participate due by the 31st of December. I probably should have added one more weekly tactic on here, which would have been number 9, which would have been to roll out a start date at the first Monday in January or the second Monday in January, but that's not on here. So probably should have been. So all of them support the goal. They all have a due date. They all start with a verb, an action verb of what I need to do. It can all be accomplished as written. Okay, any questions about weekly tactics?
So is there going to be like a worksheet with this?
I can absolutely create a worksheet like I did for the last one, and I'll post it in the Facebook group.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely.
All right, for sure.
Okay, so first step, right? So if you haven't done and watched the values and vision of week 1, go back and watch that video. Then you're going to take that vision, you're going to turn it into 2 to 3 top goals for the next 12 weeks. You're going to break those goals down into the top tactics for each goal. So I just showed you the tactics for 1. You're going to break it down for tactics for each goal, just like this. Then next week, what we're going to do is we are going to be diving into being 100% committed to your goals and your tactics, as well as implementing the implementation process of process control to make sure that you have a plan in place to execute those weekly tactics, which will move yourself forward to your goals. Okay, so that's coming up next week. So we're just trying to like chunk this off a bite at a time, right? That's how you eat an elephant, bite at a time. So week 1 is vision and values. Week 2 is we're going to develop those goals and the tactics. So by next week, we should have that all done. And then we'll come in and talk about how to put those things on your calendar, how to be 100% committed, and what that process looks like. Any questions?
And are these classes, are they going to be like every Wednesday?
Yes. So
Okay.
week 3 will be next Wednesday, same link, 11 a.m. And then the last session will be the week after that, which will wrap up our October business planning process. Same time, Wednesday,
Okay.
11, same link.
And I missed week 1, and you said it's a video for that?
There is a video for that. So I will
Okay.
also make sure I highlight it in the Facebook group as well.
Okay, cool. All right.
Perfect. So I will make sure that you have the recording for week 1 along with the worksheets that I completed for that one. And then I will make sure that I also get the worksheets for this week posted as well. And I'll have Abby post this one in the Facebook group as well once she completes the editing process. Sound good?
Yep. And you do sorry, you do one-on-one coaching too?
I do one-on-one coaching as well.
Okay, yeah, because I'm new to the industry, so I'm trying to learn as much as I can.
Absolutely. Dominic, reach out to me either on the Facebook Messenger or check out my phone number. If you Google my name, my phone number will pop up. So
Okay, all right, cool.
Okay.
You in our Slack group?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay,
Yep.
all right.
So you can message me on there as well.
Okay, cool. All right.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. I'm looking forward to seeing what you put together for goals and tactics. Looking forward to kind of driving it home and how we put it all together next week and get it on our calendar and start working through these things so that we can get going on our 12-week year. All right. Fabulous.
Let's do it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Everybody
right.
have a great day.
All right, you too. Bye.